So after watching this movie, I think I'm going to nickname Ice Cube's son Ice Tray, because this movie shows that he has a little bit of Ice Cube in him. Straight Outta Compton is directed by F. Gary Gray and stars O'Shea Jackson Jr. as Ice Cube, Corey Hawkins as Dr. Dre, Jason Mitchell as Eazy-E, Aldous Hodge as MC Ren, Neil Brown Jr. as DJ Yella, and Paul Giamatti as Jerry Heller, and it's the biopic of the rap group N.W.A, and it shows their rise to fame and their fall, and focuses mainly on Ice Cube, Dr. Dre, and Eazy-E. Now this may sound weird coming from a 15-year-old like myself, but I actually really like N.W.A. N.W.A. is one of my favorite rap groups. I really like the old style rap they did, and I think that their music has a lot of message to it, even though it is pretty explicit. And with F. Gary Gray coming back from other Ice Cube movies to direct this one, I was pretty excited for Straight Outta Compton. And this movie really delivered in everything I wanted it to be. It actually was more than I thought it would be, and it's actually a really great biopic and a really great film overall. Now the casting for this movie was pretty much spot on. Everyone that they cast looked exactly like the real life people that they were meant to play, and they all do really good jobs, especially Corey Hawkins as Dr. Dre. He was definitely my favorite character in the entire movie. He showed a lot of personality to him, more than any other character in the film, and overall his performance was really great. Casting Ice Tray as Ice Cube's son was definitely one of the most spot-on lookalikes in the entire film, and he does a really good job in this film too. The storyline for this film was also pretty great through most of it. I really enjoyed how they didn't just focus on the lives of the main characters through N.W.A, but it also showed how personal things in their life affected them and how it affected the entire group as a whole. It added more depth to the film. It really developed the characters so that when emotional scenes came, they were way more emotional than if they had just stuck to their lives in N.W.A. Two things that really added to this film were its soundtrack and its cinematography. The soundtrack was spot on throughout, every song that they played, and it really fit with each scene. It added a lot to it, and also the cinematography was very smart in a lot of ways. There were scenes where they were recording different songs, and those scenes were shot very well. It showed a lot of different things about N.W.A in those scenes. Along with the recording session scenes, the scenes where police brutality was shown were very good. They added depth to the film, they really made you care for the characters, and it really showed how bad the police brutality was in Compton, which leads me to one of the best things about this film, the themes that it shows. This film has really come out at a right time during America's history, because as you've seen in the past few years, there has been some racial discrimination against blacks, and this film really shows how in the late 1980s in Compton, and actually in a lot of places throughout America, it was a huge problem as well. There are so many scenes where black people are getting pulled over and frisked and dropped to the ground for no reason, just because white people just automatically assume they're carrying drugs, and it adds a lot to it. It really shows how badly things were, and this theme, along with the theme of freedom of speech through music, really added to the film, and it's probably one of my favorite things, if not my favorite thing about this film. However, there are some minor flaws to Straight Outta Compton, one of them being how some of real-life events that were very important in N.W.A.'s history are left out because this film does sugarcoat the characters. Now I like N.W.A, and I like all the people in N.W.A, but that does not always mean that they were great people. There are some really bad events that happened between Dr. Dre and Ice Cube and Eazy-E, and things that they did are pretty much just left out, partially because this film is produced by Ice Cube and Dr. Dre, so they don't want to show anything that would show how some of the things they did were really not okay. This is also where I'm going to advise you guys that if you have never read anything about N.W.A.'s history, don't read it before you go see this movie, because it actually adds a lot to it. See, I saw this with a group of people, and I've read extensively on the history of N.W.A, so scenes that were meant to be emotional and meant to grab the audience didn't grab me as much because I knew what was going to happen. I knew pretty much from the start what was going to happen by the end of the film, and I did kind of detract from it. Now, half the people I did see it with had never seen anything about N.W.A, and they actually did get teary-eyed in moments because there are some very emotional things that happened in this movie, and if you go in without knowing what happened in N.W.A.'s history, you'll have a better time with it than I did. This film also does have another minor flaw, which is the fact that it's 2.5 hours long. Through most of it, I was sitting here and I'm wondering, how is this 2.5 hours long? This film is so good. It's engulfing me in this world that N.W.A faced, and it's just so good. But then something happens around the 2-hour point. The last 30 minutes of this film does try to tie up loose ends that are met within the film, and it does try to reward you with, oh, this happened, so this is good now, and you like it. But the problem is that because this happens, it detracts from the film. The last 30 minutes are a little bit slower. They do try and make this a kind of a happy ending, but you don't really get that satisfaction from it. It's just kind of like, oh, well, now this has happened, so that's as cool, I guess, but it's not as good as the other 2 hours of this film. However, guys, overall, I had a really great time in this film. This film, for 2 hours, engulfed me in a world that I hadn't really seen before in movies like this. The cast was a spot-on pick. The acting in it was really good. The cinematography really added to it, as well as the soundtrack. The themes depicted in this movie were really, really well done, and it's probably my favorite part of the movie. And though I do wish some of the real-life events that happened to N.W.A. that weren't depicted in this movie actually were, because I feel like they would have added a lot to the story, and though the last 30 minutes are a bit mediocre compared to the first 2 hours of this film, I had a really great time with Straight Outta Compton. It's one of the best biopics I've seen in a really long time, and I will give it 4.5 stars. Guys, let me know below if you're a fan of N.W.A, what your favorite musical biopic is, and whatever you think, let me know below. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.